Hello everyone, welcome to the IndieGeekGuy channel, and today we're talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I will be getting into spoilers in this review, but just to kind of wrap up my thoughts in a bubble for those of you who have may not seen the movie yet, I will say I enjoyed it. I think a matter of your enjoyment may come into if you watched WandaVision and what you took away from it. That might impact what you take from the story. I just mentioned that because I think it's worth pointing out just as you're going into it to maybe keep that in mind, and it might impact like what you think and feel about the events as they unfold in this movie. Ultimately, I enjoyed it myself upon my first viewing of it. I had a good time with it. I liked Sam Raimi's direction in this movie. I liked the themes that were being played with both the characters of Doctor Strange and Wanda. I think they did a pretty good job of like growing those characters from where we last saw them. And there's all sorts of spectacle as you come to expect in a Marvel film, but it definitely had some Sam Raimi sprinklings into it. Like they go hard in this movie in some aspects. Like they go violent in a way I don't think any other Marvel movie in the MCU at least has done. So just be aware of that, especially if you're someone taking kids. There are some pretty like gruesome deaths in comparison to what you have seen in other Marvel movies. It's worth being aware of. But I enjoyed that stuff. I do have one criticism of the movie that I think is kind of important to point out. It's a mild spoiler, but it's just a management of expectations, I feel like. The movie's called In the Multiverse of Madness, and we get a great montage sequence of those multiverses, but really the movie only focuses on maybe two or three multiverses in general, at least ones we get to see characters from and how they work. But really it's just our universe, the universe that they travel to and spend a large portion of the film in, and that's really the two that we get. It's more like the title in the Multiverse of Madness is more setting the stage for where Marvel can go next with these in their movies, and the potential opportunity that has now been opened wide open by the end of this movie. But yeah, if you're going into this expecting them to go traveling across dimensions and all sorts of weird and different multiverses, just maybe temper that down a little bit, because it really just focuses on our universe, the universe we travel to, and a couple of sprinklings of other things that are important to the plot, but we don't really get to visit those places so much. But honestly, everything else requires me to spoil stuff and talk about things in detail. Like, a lot of stuff happens across this movie, and it feels like going into any detail about it would be giving it away, so to speak. So here is your spoiler warning. I'm going to go full in, just bear it all out, and we'll get into it. So our story here introduces America, a kid who can multiverse travel freely, but she can't control that power. And she keeps coming across different versions of Stephen Strange. And they seemingly come to the conclusion that she can't control her power. I can. I'm going to take her power from her and kill her in the process, because it's the only way to keep everyone safe, essentially. Which is instantly a good setup to see how our Stephen Strange from our universe, well, the MCU universe that we're used to, is going to react to this character, the power that she has, and what can happen with it. So it's a good setup to initially, like, oh god, what's he going to do? Is he going to be like everybody else, or is he going to break the cycle a little bit? I mean, it's kind of obvious where it's going to go because he is our hero of the piece, so you expect him to rise above that. And that brings me on to Doctor Strange in this movie. I've seen a lot of people saying that they felt like Doctor Strange was just, he's good in the movie, but he's just kind of there. It's not really about him so much. The movie seems to be a lot more about Wanda, and we'll get on to Wanda in a moment, but I just kind of want to maybe set the record straight, if that's the right term for this. I felt what they did with Strange in this movie was really interesting and subtle, because a lot of the movie is framed around the idea of, are you happy? That question is literally given to Strange a few times over the course of the movie, and you know he isn't. You know he isn't happy. They do a lot of nice little subtle touches to show he isn't in his right mind. He's dealing with various different things. He's dealing with the fact that his relationship with Christine has not panned out the way he wanted it to. She's getting married to someone else. He just has to try to go with it, but he doesn't want to go with it. He's not happy about it. He's annoyed that he messed up and he can't rectify it. And they have a scene with him at her wedding, and he's knocking back alcohol, and it's not focused on, But you can see that it's happening. You can see that he isn't in a good place in his mind, and he's asked, "Are you happy?" And he's like, "Yeah. Why wouldn't I be? I've got these powers." He's all putting on a front. He's all putting on this like, "I am fine because I have to be, because I am the mightiest hero there is right now. Because Iron Man's gone, Captain America is either dead or missing. I'm not sure what's going on with Captain America. But I have this power. I have my house. But at the end of the day, you see him just like he's lumbering around this empty house on his own, and he hasn't got his relationship with Christine. Wong is off being Sorcerer Supreme, so he's not really around. He's just kind of in this house on his own and trying to figure his life out. And on top of that, he's also dealing with his part in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, the choice that he made, that we get a very just on the nose scene between him and a character sort of dealing with, whilst I got dusted, my brother died. Did it have to be this way? Did you make the right choice in that moment? And you sort of see him pause for a moment, and he said, "I made the only choice. It sucks." Basically, it's written on his face. Like the choice he had to do, the one he had to make, is not what he wanted, but he had to do it, and he had to kind of live with the consequences of it. You can tell he kind of blames himself for a lot of the aftermath of what has gone on with that, like the way people's lives have been ruined or upheaved in some way. You can tell he's like living with that on his shoulders. So I really liked all that. It felt like Strange was in quite a different place to what we have seen him in previously, and I was honestly expecting this to build off of Spider-Man, like his choices that he made there, but no, it's a lot more about his choices in Avengers, the fact that he hasn't got anyone who's close to him anymore, and like him dealing with all of that. And there is a completion to that kind of arc over the course of this movie. So Wanda in this movie, depending on how you felt, as I said earlier on, about her actions in WandaVision, when she does these horrible things to these innocent people, and it's all coming from a place of grief. And you know, if you felt by the end of that show that she'd worked through her grief and she was walking away to keep people safe, or you know, to try and find some sort of redemption, if that's how you were feeling at the end of WandaVision, that she, you know, she deserved that second chance, you might not like where this movie goes. Wanda is the full-on villain of this movie. She isn't like a support character, and they did a good job of like hiding this in the trailers, I feel like, but she is full-on the villain of the piece. And I have to say, when I watched WandaVision, and this might be part of why I enjoyed this so much, was that by the end of WandaVision, I was a bit like, I don't know if she should get away with this as well as she has done. Like, she's done some awful things here to people. Yeah, it was all with her dealing with her grief and stuff, which I appreciated. It made her feel three-dimensional and interesting, and like I felt bad for her, but she did some horrendous things, and she was just able to kind of walk away from it all. And then we got the sort of stinger in WandaVision saying that sort of showed the Darkhold, the evil magic book, had an influence on her, and she was studying it in secret, kind of thing. So for me, at the end of WandaVision, it did seem pretty clear that she isn't in a good place, which probably made me enjoy this movie and what it was going for a whole lot more. So Wanda is dealing with the fact that her kids have gone. Like the kids that she made up in WandaVision aren't real. They're not with her, and she's really struggling with that, and she has an obsession with wanting to reclaim that. And she's now been studying this dark, evil book, the Necronomicon from Evil Dead. We'll get onto Sam Raimi as well, but it's a very Sam Raimi movie in a lot of ways. But she's studying this book, and she has discovered she can look into the multiverse, and she has found versions where her kids are real, and she has them, and she's living them, and she wants to go and break into the multiverse and take those kids for herself and be their mother. And she needs America with her powers to do that. And that's really where the thrust of the plot comes in, where she's willing to basically kill this girl in order to get that power so she can have these kids. But, you know, brings up all the questions of what happens to the actual mother from that universe. Wanda, what are you doing? Have you completely lost your mind? And there is this whole element that the Darkhold, the book, the Necronomicon, infects the mind, and it takes hold of you and brings out those darker thoughts. And you know, that's one element of the movie that I felt could have been a bit more explicit, because it doesn't really go explicit. It just sort of states that using this book can corrupt you and take a toll on you, and that's kind of it. They don't really go into it much more than that. It's kind of a bit of a throwaway dialogue scene when they say that. But for me, it was enough. It was enough to sort of set that up and sort of say that Wanda, like the good person that we know Wanda can be, is still in there somewhere, but she is still dealing with her grief. She's still dealing with her obsessions over these things. And the Darkhold has kind of just exacerbated that. But if you thought Wanda was up to no good in WandaVision, if you felt that she did some bad things there, boy oh boy, she goes the extra mile in this movie in terms of just evil. So she claims sending like demon-like monsters to get America to kill her and grab her power was her being kind or reasonable, and sending herself would be far worse, which is what happens eventually when Strange gets involved with this whole thing. Once he decides that he's going to protect America, that's when Wanda decides, well, I'm just going in myself. I'm coming, I'm getting her. You can get out of my way or you're going to die, effectively. And personally, I like that turn in Wanda. I think Elizabeth Olsen does such an incredible job with Wanda, because in the hands of someone not as talented, like, I feel like that part could be a little bit two-dimensional, but she really sells the whole thing. You really get where she's coming from and why she has gotten to this point, and it makes the whole thing feel a lot more tragic, this downfall of this character who has, you know, been a complex character across all her MCU appearances. She starts off as a villain. She starts off like, yeah, sure, I'll give myself over to medical experiments because I hate Tony Stark, and then she tries to find the error of her ways, and then she's good again, but she's also kind of like, I don't know what my powers are, how strong they are, people seem to fear me, I always seem to react in really violent ways when things go wrong, or I get stressed out. And, you know, it's been an interesting journey with that character, and I really think Elizabeth Olsen has truly sold that journey throughout. And she shines here as well. Like, she really brings, I think, one of the better Marvel villains, and I think it obviously helps that we've had that character throughout a bunch of appearances to build that up. But overall, I just really enjoyed this movie dealing with themes of just kind of loss and obsession, and obviously, as I said earlier, just that question of, are you happy? It's a really, it's like simple thing. Like, it's like just putting that question to people who you would think should just be happy with their lot, but are they really? Now let's talk about Sam Raimi and his influence over this movie, and you can feel it. Like, I was honestly so surprised that they allowed him to do what he does in this movie. Like, I was kind of going, oh, it's cool, Sam Raimi's directing this, but I don't know how much creative control they're actually going to give him. Like, is it just going to feel like, you know, your normal Marvel movie because they have their look, their style, in order to make everything feel like it continues across all the other movies? But I was honestly really surprised with the amount of Sam Raimi-ness that he was allowed to put into this. Like, we get his crazy camera movements, we get some of his big physical, like, violent comedy in there. We get a Bruce Campbell cameo, which was great. And just the level of violence, as I alluded to earlier, like, there is some gruesome kills in here. None more so than the Illuminati. Like, the Illuminati show up, and one, that's a whole thing. Like, we have obviously Charles Xavier, and they play the music from the 90s cartoon, which, oh my god, I don't think I've had a moment in the cinema for a long time. Like, this is pure nostalgia, like, hitting the nail on the head. And I don't know if anyone else in that cinema got the same tinkle I did or not, but that was cool. You've got Black Bolt from the Inhumans TV show there, and showing off his power as well in an interesting way. And then you have variations of Captain America, but this time it's Peggy Carter. And also in this universe, it appears that Rambo, she became Captain Marvel, and that's how that happened. And then we also get Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four there. It's really interesting because I thought in the trailer that these were going to be like a group from different multiverses. They were going to be different heroes from different multiverses come together to form this council. But no, it just seems like they are all from this particular universe. Also, there's Mordo from this universe as well. I'm not super up on my Doctor Strange comics, but I believe he's one of the mainstay villains. And, you know, he was in the first Doctor Strange, so it's nice to see him back here, even if it was an alternate universe version. They just kind of gloss over that he's been out in our universe trying to kill Doctor Strange. Like, we don't actually get to see that, our version of that character in this movie, but they do sort of say he's been dedicating his life to killing me, but we just don't get to see it. The Illuminati here are so high and mighty. Doctor Strange is like trying to warn them about Wanda and what she's going to do, and they're like, look, we're not worried. We're not worried about your little witch. We can deal with that. We took out Thanos in like a day, alright? Just settle down. We're more worried about you and what you're doing to the multiverse, because everything we've seen seems to come back to you and your impact. But then in comes Wanda like a goddamn Terminator. Like, literally. Like, she's just taken no prisoners. She's covered in blood. And just decimates the Illuminati in some of the most visually grim ways that a Marvel movie can get away with. Like, it's pushing it, I think, to the very limits of what a PG-13 12A would allow them to do. Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, gets shredded into Play-Doh. Like, he gets put through a meat grinder, more or less. He's just shredded, and then his head just pops like a balloon. And you don't get a full gore effect, but you get the illusion to it, and it's like, that is fucked up. And the rest of the Illuminati receive similar fates, like Peggy Carter gets cut in half with a shield, fucking Rambo, Captain Marvel, gets crushed by a statue, like, not just like flattened, like crushed. And then Black Bolt, oh my god, like, they thought they had a plan to deal with her, like, yo, Black Bolt's just gonna whisper and you're gonna die, that's it. And then she's like, yeah, how's he gonna whisper with no mouth? Then it just cuts to him with no mouth, just sealed. He tries to talk, and then his head just blows inside and just sloops over and just starts oh, it's so good. So I'm so happy that they let Sam Raimi just run with his style in as much as they did. Like, I really wasn't expecting them to allow him to do it, but I'm so happy that they did. So Wanda is literally terrifying in this movie. Like, she manages to take out effectively an Avengers team, and they're a pretty high-powered Avengers team, and she does it within 5 minutes or so. Like, it's a one fell swoop, so it really does sell like the power level she's operating at and how much of a threat she is, not just our universe, but all of them at this point. What I found really kind of interesting about this movie, because, it being called Multiverse of Madness and kind of expecting that it might link in more with the bigger picture of the MCU, it really kind of doesn't. It's a lot more focused on its own story and its characters that it's telling that story with, which I actually really appreciated. It felt like, yes, it helps if you've seen WandaVision and you know what that character's been through, and yes, it helps if you've seen the Avengers and you sort of know what Endgame, what happened there and whatever. It has those ties, and it is continuing on from there. But ultimately, once you get the ball rolling and you've set that stuff up at the start, because they do sort of go through the WandaVision thing in the beginning of the movie, and they get you up to speed. But once you're there, the movie is very much just about Strange, WandaVision, America, the relationships that are all going on there, and what they're dealing with. I mean, America, like, I actually really liked her in this. She was charming, she was a fun character, but also she has her own loss that she's dealing with, a kind of horrendous loss, like something that she really blames herself for. And I really liked how her and Doctor Strange sort of deal with their mutual losses, and how he kind of mentors her to, like, hey, you're doing incredibly well given your situation. And I just really liked that, like, their sort of partnership, and I think it also helped Strange sort of see his own worth a little bit more, especially when he's kind of at his lowest point in a lot of ways. But the movie does set the stage for the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of how we can use the multiverse going forward, how it can influence stories going forward, with America sort of being trained with Wong and the other sorcerers at the end. We now have a literal gateway to explore the multiverse, bring other characters in, get us go to other places. All that stuff has been opened up now. But it's such a massive concept with so many possibilities. I feel like they're kind of taking a little bit of baby steps getting there. Like I say, this movie doesn't really deal with lots of different multiverses. We get an amazing montage sequence that we have Paint universe, like comic book universe, and then just some really out there visual ones that are just nuts, like just going hell for leather. And then there's like a silent movie one, a noir one, It's cool, and it definitely gets the imagination going, but that's not really the focus of this movie. It's more to do with like our central characters, like I say, and how they're dealing with their problems. Which brings me to the ending. I really like the ending. One, obviously, I liked that Wanda could finally see when she is pinning up her other version of herself in front of the kids that she claims that she loves and wouldn't harm or harm anyone. "I'm not a monster," is the line that she says, and she finally sees what she truly wants, and she understands that I don't deserve to have it because of the way I am acting, and she has the consequences. That's the thing I liked about it, that there are consequences for her actions in this movie. It wasn't a case of, oh, Wanda's good again now, so we can just let it slide, which was kind of my issue with the end of WandaVision. Like, we're just going to kind of let this slide, I guess. But here we actually get the consequences to all of it, and it comes down to it, and seems like she dies at the end. It seems like she is dead. There is like a flash of red when the building finally collapses on her. So she might have teleported out. I guess that's kind of a seed where they can go whatever way they want with that. But also, obviously, multiverse, we could have another version of Wanda come in, still played by Elizabeth Olsen, and they could do something with that. But like I was saying earlier, I really liked Strange's like journey through this movie, where he finally comes to the conclusion of, I'm not happy. He just admits it to himself. There's another great scene where he's talking to his like evil counterpart, one who went around multiverses killing other versions of himself, just out of, I don't know, pure rage. But there's a great moment where he has a really honest like revelation with themselves, where he talks about something that happened in his childhood, like a really tragic event, and he says, "Yeah, we don't talk about that, do we?" It's really interesting because it just is a good scene that shows how much Strange doesn't actually talk about, how much of a front he actually puts up, which I really loved about his character arc in this movie. Because if you think about people who you ask who are happy and aren't, 99% of the chance they're going to say, "Yeah, I'm happy, I'm fine, don't worry about me," because that's kind of the truth of it. It's the sad truth of it, is people who aren't happy don't want to admit that they're plagued by those thoughts and things that are living with them. And I felt like they did a really good job with that, with Strange's character, in terms of him dealing with things that he doesn't want to admit to, that are always bubbling underneath the surface with him. And like by the end of the movie, he says, "No, I'm not happy, but you know what, I'm going to try and move forward." And we has that with Christine, because there's an alternate version of Christine who, there's a temptation there for him to say, "Hey, come over to my universe, we can be together, we can be happy." But he instantly knows that it would be hypocritical of him to do that, because that's exactly what Wanda's trying to do. And he just knows, like, this version of Christine has to go back to her life and live that life just as much as he has to go back to his life and move forward and try and find his happiness and try and find what will make him happy eventually. I just kind of loved that. I loved that arc, and that he truly learns something. It really feels like the character moves forward from a place that he was starting from. So yeah, honestly, I had a great time with this movie. I don't know if I would go out and say it's one of my favorite MCU movies, but for what it was, I generally really did enjoy it. And I feel like people who aren't so hot on it, it might be to do with the fact that maybe they didn't watch WandaVision, or maybe they had a different take at the end of WandaVision, so it feels like that this movie might be undercutting what the point of WandaVision was for them. Like, if you came out of it thinking, like I say, that she was dealing with her grief, and then she got to the end of the tunnel and she got through it, then going into this movie, you might feel a bit like, that's not what I got from that. Like, this has gone down a completely different path than what I thought it would be. I can see that. I get where that would come from, but because I guess I didn't see it that way, that's why I'm satisfied with the journey that this movie went with. And I know some people weren't happy with Strange in this movie, saying that he was kind of as good as his performance is, and as, he's all right, he's fun to see, but he's just not as interesting. I would not agree with that. I feel like what he's doing is just a lot more kind of subtle, and in some ways a lot more real. Like I was saying earlier about how people pretend to be happy when they're not, and the movie, I think, did quite a good job of that. And then there's all the fun stuff, like Sam Raimi going full Sam Raimi is super fun. Like, fucking Doctor Strange possessing a corpse of himself and giving it a cloak of the damned. Like, come on now. Like, you don't get much better than that. That's just top tier madness that I love to see. And, you know, there are the normal trappings of a Marvel movie. There is like a big CGI fight in there, a few big CGI fights in there, but I don't know, it just felt like when you're dealing with magic and stuff, you kind of want to see a bit of spectacle. There's a great fight between Evil Strange and R Strange where they're using musical notes to fight one another, which is really fun. So there's a lot of imagination on show here, and, you know, with Sam Raimi, you wouldn't expect anything less. There are some actual, like, jump scares in the movie, so that's also something to be aware of. Like, the way Xavier gets killed, you know, that's... that shit me up a bit. Like, it's like, I knew it was gonna happen, but... ooh, boy. But no, I had a blast. Like I say, not one of my favorite Marvel movies. I feel like some of the pacing is a little bit like sometimes it slows right down and speeds right up, and you know that can be a bit jarring at times. And maybe I would have liked to see them go to not a plethora of other multiverses, but maybe just get to see more than two. That might have been nice. Well, you know, I'll be fair. We get to see like two in a bit because we get to see like the evil Doctor Strange universe as well, and that's there. But you know, I don't know. I feel like it might have been fun to just have a journey through the multiverse as they were being pursued by Wanda, to sort of see all the crazy stuff they could have done with that. But we just get that kind of short little transition moment, which was fun. I just might have liked to seen a bit more of that and a bit more of that imagination, because the visuals in this are really good. Like, the visual work that goes into this is just like the first Doctor Strange, like, really is to be beholden. They do some really cool stuff. But no, I enjoyed Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I had a great time with it. I liked some of the darkness they had. I liked some of the subtle stuff they had. I like Sam Raimi being able to do his crazy camera work at times and do some zooms and all that great stuff. Bruce Campbell was fun in there. I wish there was more, but it was fun for him just to actually be there. Like I say, if you're not into Marvel movies as is, this won't be the one that will change your mind, because this is one of the most comic book movies in a lot of ways, and it definitely leans heavily into it. But it does also have the Sam Raimi horror, gothic-y kind of edge in there as well, if you're into that. But as you say, if you're not into Marvel movies as is, this won't be the one to change your mind. But as far as Marvel movies for me go, I liked that this one felt like it definitely had a director's stamp in there. It didn't get completely muffled out by all the Marvel movies must sort of look and sound kind of the same, so they all fit together like a neat jigsaw. It definitely felt like there was a director's vision in here, which I appreciated a great deal. And I like the character stuff. So yeah, I would recommend, if you're into your Marvel movies, to go check this one out. I had a great time with it. Let me know what you guys think if you've seen it. Let me know in the comments below what you liked, what you didn't like, what worked for you, what you might have wanted more of, all that stuff. Yeah, please let me know. But I would give it a recommendation. Thank you for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up button. It helps me know you liked it. It helps it get seen by more people. Also, consider subscribing so you don't miss any future videos. That's reviews, reactions, gameplay, all that fun stuff. But that's it. Thank you for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you on the next one.